Hi, welcome. My name is Dale McCluskey, and on this video, it's part of my series called Flipping the Script, going to be responding to a exchange by way of two trainers. One, Zak George, who identifies as a force-free trainer, and Mike de Blasio of K9-1, who identifies as a balanced dog trainer. Now, in this email exchange, which you can go online and you can find this. This is a public email back and forth. And in this exchange, the backstory on this is K9-1 being offended over statements Zak George had made regarding the dominance issue. So this is K9-1 had responded to this. So this is a back and forth between both of these trainers. And what this exchange serves to illustrate, okay, is again why it is that balanced dog trainers are unable, okay, to call out force-free dog trainers because, and again, I've put up some other videos which really, again, illustrates my point. Because balanced dog trainers, they themselves are in agreement with, okay, this inherently flawed idea that approaches a relationship problem between dogs and owners as a learning-based exercise. So understanding that both these groups, those who identify as force-free and balanced, are married, okay, to this same idea. And so again, this is why it's impossible to call out that which you're in agreement with. Okay, so again, I'm very specific regarding the source of the problem by way of motivating, okay, dogs to respond in the middle of a relationship problem while assuming that those responses can be trusted by way of perceptions of dogs changing. Again, talk about the missing core ingredients here to actually define or discern that perceptions of dogs are changing by way of control and influence. Okay, I talk about how those two core ingredients come into a process the right way, okay, by way of a intentional interaction-based method, versus, again, those who identify as balanced and force-free, who are, again, approach training as a learning-based exercise and are superficially motivating dogs to respond at the very beginning. And again, understand the only difference when it comes to balanced dog trainers is they attempt to bring influence into this inherently flawed idea of things by way of what's called the four quadrants. Okay, I talk about the issue by way of influence coming in by way of, again, motivating dogs this way, and that again attempting to firm up this already inherently flawed idea by way again of motivating dogs to respond that way. So again, when I talk about what is the motivator, because again, this is one of the very challenging things with trainers is, well, if you're not using treats, you're not using something to motivate a dog, then what are you using? Well, no, it's actually the wrong way to be thinking, okay, in the first place, because again, I talk about this, just like this is why I talk about the parenting example so often is to help people understand the problems by way of the current state of the relationship. It's no different than, again, dealing with a relationship issue between a parent and a selfish child. And it's like someone walking into your home like Santa Claus with a bag of goodies over their shoulder, and the only thought process, because understand this is like hardwired into the dog training community, is how can I get this child, selfish child, but understand they don't even make that connection. How can I get this selfish child to respond so I can sell those responses as is to the parent? And without any sort of critical thinking, without connecting dots by way of the parental role, without auditing the parenting style in terms of causation, okay, none of it. And then again, people wonder why it is that dogs, again, in terms of dogs as social animals, because understand I talk about how a dog's decision-making process is influenced and governed at that level. Dogs moving around the training environment looking fantastic. Why it's so common, okay, to get your certificate, only discover once you go back home, go back in the real world, you're still dealing with a ongoing relationship problem. Behavioral issues have not resolved. And it's so common because understand when you consider that the majority of trainers are doing this, okay, balance and force free, which comprise like 99.9% of all trainers out there, then you start to understand why blame shifting onto so many dogs as a result of a bad outcome becomes normalized. Okay, as though, okay, there must be something wrong with the dog. No, there's absolutely everything the dog to do wrong with this idea of things. So again, you start to understand the problems. Now, here's the thing. Now, in this back and forth exchange, which is, again, really is a great illustration as to my point, you're going to see the breakdown, okay, right away of, this is an attempt by a balanced trainer to try to call out Zak George. Now, I'm going to read some of this. I'll stop along the way, and I'm going to, kind of key up on a couple main issues here just to illustrate and show just how twisted the dog training world has become. Totally upside down. It goes on here. My name is Zak George. I make dog training videos on YouTube. Of course, he's got to put his, okay, how to reach them, right? And I see never missing an opportunity to market himself, right? And I see that you do too. I'm reaching out to you because I don't know a lot about you guys, but I want to learn. Well, that's interesting. That word learning always seems to come up, which is why I'm writing you. Specifically, I'm curious to know what your policy is in terms of advising the public about training collars like choke, prong, electric collars. And again, understand this is one of the things that Zak George is always talking about, pain. He used certain words to, incite, inflame, right? But again, no depth, okay? And again, even I talk about all the inherent problems in the dog training world, complete disregard to actually, connect dots, okay, in terms of this very problematic idea. Okay, understand that you get these trainers out there that are just pushing this at the same time, trying to elevate, okay, this idea up to a level of science. Okay, it's not science. So I know these tools are quite popular in protection training. Thank you for taking the time to read this, Zak George. Now here's Mike de Blasio's response. Hi, Zak. Very nice channel. I've seen some of your work before. Clickers and tree training, very impressive. Now right here, okay, here's the break. Here's where everything falls apart. Okay, and I'll explain why. And in fact, I'm going to refer to a situation, okay, years ago when I was in Canada. I was aligned with Humane Society, and there came a moment, okay, where I was invited to sit down, okay, alongside those who advocated clicker training, right, to kind of join together, have a discussion. I refused. Okay, right? I refused. Now I did it in a way that didn't come off harsh. I explained why. And see, this is the problem in the dog training world. And that's why I talk about, where's that line as to when I talk about what training is and what it isn't. Okay, I'm very clear. Training is not a learning-based exercise. The way that it's being marketed, okay, by balanced and force-free trainers. Okay, right out of the starting gate, I show that, just like, think of the parenting example. Okay, once a relationship problem's underway, once a child has become selfish, think about at that moment, you're getting information about, arriving at that point in the relationship where, okay, okay, the child is selfish based again on certain things, information you're getting from peers in the school, you as a parent, child's attitude, just their, how they're, just so have a bad attitude about everything. And you arrive at that based again on getting certain information. At that moment, right? Think about it. Ask yourself the question: what does a process represent at that kind of pivotal moment? Is it a learning-based exercise where you're pulling out the Xbox games and you're just simply getting the child to clean their room and pick up their toys? Don't get me wrong, all good responses, good things. But is that really just what it's about? Is that everything? Is that what your basis for change is based on? Just superficial response that way. And that's why I talk about, when does bribery become bribery? Well, bribery becomes bribery. You fail to connect dots and you're simply engaging, in the middle of a relationship problem without considering, the role of the parent. Even I talk about defining, influence. How is it, established? What does it represent? Well, it's parental influence based on alignment with the authoritative parenting style. Based on a parent who's engaged, who's dialed in. Okay, I talk about this. One of these big themes that's missing in balanced dog training is that not dialed into the relationship. They're not dialed into a dog's state of mind that way. The role of influence does not intercept, does not align properly by way of what I talk about dogs' level of stinking thinking. Okay, you'll see it. So balanced dog trainers are not dialed in that way at all because they themselves have aligned themselves with this superficial idea of things, and where the starting gate, just like force-free trainers, they're focused on within a framework of response in a very superficial way. Okay, those two core ingredients do not come in by way of a interaction-based method, and that's a problem. Okay, so right here, the defining moment is again, training is not a learning-based exercise. So right here, this first statement right at the starting gate tells you everything you need to know. Okay, very impressive. Well, this is why you hear trainers out there giving, force-free trainers an ideological hall pass all the time, saying, well, force-free trainers, they can train, just as good, balanced dog trainers say, oh, we use clickers. They say it all the time. Oh, we use treats. And this is why when you look at balanced dog trainers and force-free trainers, I talk about they're married to the same idea of things, okay? And so, when they're trying to call each other out, it's like, it's like a family squabble. I mean, they're married, okay? I'm not married to this idea at all. In fact, I approach training differently, understanding, okay, what a process represents. And so this whole thing about very impressive, well, there it is. Goes on about, talking about his policies. You can read this yourself. I'm going to scroll down here and get to another kind of key moment, okay, that people need to be aware of. I talk about, how upside down the dog training world has, become, right? People need to pay attention. Now here, this is a response from Zak George. Thank you for taking the time to answer my questions for the detailed explanation. My main objective is to see where some leaders of this industry stand on physical correction standards. Since your YouTube channel right here has 70,000 subscribers, that's put you in a position of influence in the same public I also advise. Now here's how upside down the dog training world has become. Things have gotten so twisted. And this starts right back from, Pavlov and Skinner. This has been on a slow boil ever since. You see all the inherent problems. You see all the divisiveness. You see in the dog training world, seeing, this back and forth. You see in dogs end up in shelters, breed-specific bans, device bans. Some countries you can't even use a crate. Right? You're seeing this escalation. You're seeing the force-free movement taking over. Because understand something here. Because again, in terms of the deceptive nature, okay, what this idea represents is all based on appearances. So again, it lacks depth. It does not bring the core ingredients into a process. So in terms of outcomes, okay, you're seeing how blame shifting has become normalized. But understand something, when you have both these groups of trainers doing this, now you got a real problem. Okay, and what balanced dog trainers, what they represent, they're playing both sides. Okay, that's why they say, oh, we use clickers, right? They approach training as a learning-based exercise just like force-free trainers. The only difference is that they're bringing influence into the equation, trying to firm up an already inherently flawed idea, okay? The door is completely wide open for dogs to hold control through the process itself based on the application of this idea, motivating dogs to respond that way at the very beginning. Just, again, think about my parenting example. And so yeah, they're playing both sides, but they're also compromised. So if you go watch the video I did on Jamie Penrith, who's a balanced dog trainer, going on Good Morning Britain, where it just leads up to the moment where he's challenged, by a anti remote collar trainer from Dogs Trust, called out when Jamie Penrith says, well, for some dogs, the remote collar, for the safety of some dogs, are running out into the road. Well, and then suddenly it's like, well, hold on here a second. You know, we show very clearly that, we can train the dog to make a different choice, right? So think about, I talk about the role of influence by way of intercepting, okay? Interrupting the dog's state of mind, intercepting. Whereas these trainers using treats, right? Changing focus. But understand that balanced dog trainers, they're in a catch-22 situation. They're caught in this trap of this idea that they've come into agreement with. And there's no way out. Okay, understand this is why they're challenged. So, the reality is that forestry trainers have the ideological high ground. Okay, they actually look a lot less confused based, again, on what this idea represents. Not a good thing. Don't get me wrong, the forest-free movement, but that's where we're at. But this whole thing about, and this is what's going on, this whole thing about popularity. You talk about, hundreds of thousands of people. Zak George has millions of followers. The question is, well, is that a good thing? Well, no, everything's being exploited. Understand that, look at outcomes. So people are buying into this because it plays off people's emotions, their feelings. It's very deceptive. It's all based on appearances. The criteria for, in terms of what change is not based on, I talk about the core ingredients. So understand that it's no accident why it's so common for people to end up with a, a counterfeit picture of change by way of response. That's very common. So this whole thing about popularity has got twisted up in this. So you can be very popular, as a balanced trainer, as a forestry trainer. It doesn't mean that that's a good thing. And then very interesting when people come in and look at the information I'm putting out, these balanced dog trainers, it's gotten so bad that their whole criteria for truth, their criteria for truth is about how many views and likes and how popular you are. Or if you're putting out information like I am, you're just trying to get popular through. This is how bad, this is how twisted this is. But look at the state. I encourage you, look at the state of the dog training world. It's coming apart at the seams. Okay, this isn't getting better, it's getting worse. For a reason. That's no accident, coincidence either. So again, I go through my series, I'm putting out all the information so that, dog owners, okay, this isn't about me just marketing this way. Dog owners can make an informed decision. There's nothing hidden here. So again, this back and forth is another, great example. Here it is right here, right from the opening line. Very impressive, okay? Breaks down right there because, both these groups are in agreement. You can't call out, that which you're in agreement with. It's impossible. This is why I say the things I can say. You won't hear any of these trainers even whisper what I'm saying. They can't talk about the real issue. I do. So again, I'm putting all this information. You can take a look at this exchange between these two trainers. Again, another example of, again, the current state of the dog training world. Thanks for watching.